President Trump's second term is drawing alarm from protests to experts over this drift away from democracy and towards an autocratic slide that can be understood sometimes not so much by looking to our own history, but those of other countries. From Turkey to Hungary, where systems that once used elections and law as a baseline began to bend to autocrats, where scenes of troops abroad resonate differently now for many in America as Trump repeatedly deploys soldiers inside our country to U.S. cities that he views as some kind of political opposition. Or take Argentina, where a military coup in 1976 replaced one form of government with violent repression, censorship crackdowns, mass government agents kidnapping and killing citizens. Argentina's dictatorship carried out what came to be known as the Dirty War. The killings estimated to run from 8 to 30,000, a dark, cruel history that also featured a brave resistance, including mothers who gathered to mark and protest how the dictatorship had disappeared young, sometimes pregnant women. It's a story told in a new book by The Economist magazine writer Hayley Cohen Gilliland. A flower traveled in my blood. The New York Times calls it a powerful, harrowing, and astonishing story of the moving quest of those grandmothers' activism. Hayley joins us now. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this book, obviously you've been at work on it for a long time. What motivated you to tell this part of the story?
I moved to Argentina shortly after college to work as a foreign correspondent for The Economist, and I went down with a little bit of a background knowledge in what had gone on during the dictatorship, but it wasn't until living there that I learned the true extent of the brutality that took place during that time. And the story that most astounded me was the story of the grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo, who are the subject of my book, who their children were abducted by the military, sometimes while pregnant, as you mentioned. And so they were missing not only their children, but also their grandchildren. And in the face of this just unthinkable tyranny, they banded together and worked as a team to find and reclaim their stolen grandchildren.
In the book, you write that they had this reorganization process at the sort of government level, a brutal plan to quash the political violence, to do away with Congress, restrict political activities. They banned trade unions. Military men and police officers would rove the streets, and when they spotted a target, they'd leap from the car, stuff the person inside, and drive away. What does that history and what governments can become tell you, and why would someone want to read that now? Not making any exact comparison, because it's a very different set of examples, but what does it tell us about what governments can become?
Right. As you said, there's no direct comparison because we're talking about a regime that their preferred manner of killing people was to load them into planes alive and push them out over rivers and oceans. They disappeared tens of thousands of Argentines. They stole children. They stole babies. So there's no direct comparison. I don't want to hyperbolize. But there are some really eerie echoes from that time period. You mentioned unmarked cars, masked officers who don't identify what agencies they're working for, making arrests, the growth of this enemy from within narrative, the images just of troops in camouflage with guns in American cities, and, of course, the really terrifying spike in political violence. And so there are these echoes. Mm-hmm. And Argentina, I think, does, studying Argentina does allow, it illustrates lessons for other democracies that want to avoid this fate, and essentially is a very stark cautionary tale about how a government that puts its agenda before the rule of law and allows democratic erosion to go unchecked, this is an example of the depths that a country can reach.